This is Amelia. Amelia is almost level 10. Just give her a moment. There we go. Level 10 marks an important point in Amelia's career as a unit. She'll have to choose what to promote into, which will have a massive effect on her abilities going forward. Her first option is Cavalier, a mobile generalist able to fight and support their team in almost any situation. Alongside some minor stat improvements, the Cavalier gains access to swords, 3 points of additional movement, the ability to move after certain actions, and a large boost to aid. Her second option is the Knight. The Knight gets some slightly different stat bonuses. Why would you ever choose Knight? The branching class system refined by Sacred Stones is a pretty good one, giving the player a chance to customize and control the abilities of their units. Unfortunately, once you know the mechanics of each promotion option, the choices start feeling like they have correct answers. While the Cavalier vs. Knight example is probably the most extreme, a majority of the branches have a clear better option in most scenarios, which is a real shame. I'm going to try to fix that. Some disclaimers. My aim of balancing the classes isn't to make it easier to beat the game with the wrong choices. It's to make it so that someone like me, with an optimization mindset and a tendency to try to complete maps fast, might actually pick some of the lesser options for once. I also want to focus on differentiating the options, since that's both more fun and means a gap in quality can be justified by unique abilities. My goal is to balance every class choice, not every class and character. All that matters to me is that when you get to this screen, either option has a decent reason to be chosen. It doesn't matter if Paladin is far better than Sniper, or Molder far more useful than Natasha. So let's start at the top of the hero tree. Sniper vs. Ranger has one of the most disparaging gaps in quality, in a very similar way to Cav vs. Knight. Ranger gets all the benefits in the form of an additional weapon type and a horse, with Sniper merely getting arguably better stats, but not even in all areas, and Sure Shot just sucks. Honestly, just giving the character a skill book would be better. Being bow-locked is bad. Being foot-locked is bad. The least a class can do if they're stuck in a bad situation is kill things well. So let's give Sniper a lot better stat bonuses, and a crit bonus as well. Namie's combat isn't particularly strong. Ideally, being a Sniper can allow her to one round more enemies, whilst Ranger still retains all its horse-related goodness. This is an example of a pretty good choice that doesn't really need to be changed. Hero granting axes, plus being faster, pushes Garrett's combat to being excellent, whereas Ranger makes him more versatile and able to support his team. Either has valid reasons for being chosen, and the choice can be made to suit your team. This is the kind of choice I want in all the branches. Both get fairly irrelevant secondary weapons, but while C rank means you can make use of them if needed, E rank is nearly useless without training up. On top of that, 2 speed is in every way an improvement over 2 con. D rank bows means they're actually usable, while B rank axes is higher than any other class. A small strength boost also gives it that little statistical edge that I think it needs. All in all, Warrior might be a bit on the strong side now, but that's kinda needed for its other promotion sibling. Berserker is again better when it comes to speed, but it also gets water walking and a crit bonus, each of which on their own is more useful than swords or bows. Unless you really want Ross to use bows, there's no good reason to pick Warrior here. Playing up Warrior's minor defense edge by lowering Berserkers gives Warrior a potentially significant advantage when it comes to bulk. The changes Warrior already got help it again here to hopefully counteract the rest of Berserker's abilities. The Sword Fighter tree is interesting since it crosses a combat class with a utility class. In that context, we can have their middle ground, the Assassin, be a support choice for Myrmidons and a combat choice for Thieves. In their current context, Assassin is basically trying to be a Swordmaster with the ability to pick locks. Silencer is pretty bad and doesn't make up for all the other combat flaws. A crit bonus is far more valuable. One thing could significantly improve Assassin's utility for both combat and thievery, and that's movement. Giving the Assassin 7 move will mean as a combat unit, they outrange the Swordmaster and can get into more situations. And that also helps it when it comes to utility, being able to reach important objectives far sooner. On top of that, I've improved the stats of both. The main reason being that Assassin needs to be the combat option for Thief, and then Swordmaster still needs to be better than them. On the Thief side, the problem was that neither Pick nor Silencer are very impactful. And after that, the only noticeable difference is the Assassin's inability to steal, making Rogue the simply slightly better choice. Assassin getting a point of movement alongside some better stats makes it the clear combat choice, while still being useful for utility in a way that Rogue can't through the added move. Rogue is going to get a far more useful and interesting skill, Canto. A very useful skill on any character, but particularly a thief, since you can move after picking locks, stealing, and lighting torches. It's a direct improvement to the utility of a thief in a unique way. Okay, so Pegasus Knights have more HP and defense, whereas due to higher con, Wyvern Knight is faster. That really feels like the reverse of what each option should entail. I've swapped these around through some changes, giving Falcons better speed and strength, while Wyverns get better HP and defense. A higher starting sword rank also makes them more useful to use. Overall, Pegasus Knight should now be more offensive, whereas Wyverns are bulkier and defensive. A few small stat advantages across the board is nowhere near as useful as 3 points of speed. Falcon gets a higher stat total than Wyvern Knight, likely to balance out Pierce, but Lord doesn't for some reason. Emphasizing Lord's advantages should help to improve the matchup a bit. Now onto the magic tree with Troubadour. These options are way too samey. The only stat difference is a single point of res, and after that the only other difference is D Light versus C Anima. Across the board I followed a general pattern with the magic tree. One option usually focuses on support, where the other option focuses on combat. In this case, I've shifted the Valkyrie into a more support focus and Mage Knight into combat. Valkyrie's going down in stats as well as in weapon rank. To compensate, it gets a staff bonus, and more importantly, 8 move, making it stand out as the prime horseback caster. Bishop's Slayer makes it a dominant offensive force in a unique way. It's basically the only case where a mounted unit is outclassed. Since I've already boosted Valkyrie's ability to support it, now it has a distinct role and the choice is already a bit more balanced. Slayer and an extra point of magic versus C rank Anima. Slayer is so good that Bishop is by far the better option when it comes to offense. Increasing Sage's base staff rank to C, as well as moving around some stats, hopefully makes Sage stand out more. This creates a situation where Sage is more generally useful, with better magic, staff ranks, and defense, while Bishop is incredibly strong in the specific, though common, situation of fighting monsters. I've already made changes to both Sage and Mage Knight, and after some consideration, I don't think there's a clear choice here. Mage Knight being mounted means it's more versatile in the battlefield, able to participate in more combat as well as being able to support their team with the normal horse stuff. Sage on the other hand has more defense, magic users' usual biggest weakness. Both Light and Anima also give it more options in combat. For support, the higher staff rank makes it stand out. So there's now a lot going into the decision between Mage Knight and Sage, which is exactly what I want. Summoning is such an interesting, unique, and useful ability which nothing Druid can provide makes up for. Druid needs a lot more stuff. Both by default get a +3 to speed. Taking that away from Summoner gives Druid a more distinct role as the fastest caster, at least among the people tree. Alongside some other stat movements, giving Druid a higher staff rank gives it more support options. To top it all off, it's also getting a crit bonus, the only one among the casters. That should make it unique enough to be viable. It just sucks that Great Knight only has 6 movement. Going down in movement just feels bad and makes me never want to pick it. Simply boosting it up to the standard 7 should be enough in combination with its other boons to make this an actual choice. I've also moved around some stats, partially to make it more balanced, but also for the purposes of... General sucks even more. Great Knight was already better here, and with an extra point of movement, the gap is even worse. Like with Sniper v Ranger, General needs to be really strong to compensate. On top of some significant stat boosts, General should also have higher weapon ranks. With that, General is hopefully enough of a statistical monster that its low range is a trade-off rather than a death sentence. So I've skipped the Trainees up to this point, mainly because they sit in an unusual situation, where the decision of their first class is affected by future options. Looking at Ross to start, Pirate is clearly better than Fighter. It's speed and defense versus con and res, and Pirate has the better of both, with, on top of that, water walking, giving it some really nice utility. However, this choice doesn't matter as much as you'd think. Since the tier 2 classes are now balanced, or at least we're assuming they are, the path is more determined by what you want Ross to end up as. If you want Ross to be a hero, you have to go Fighter, meaning there's a reason to pick it. However, if you want him to be a warrior, where the choice matters since both paths work, it's much better to go through Pirate. Unless you're also using Comb. The demand for promotion items, depending on your team, might limit which path you can go down, and thus the choice becomes whether you adapt Ross to your team, or have your team adapt to Ross. I'm going to swap the defense and res to make Fighter slightly more comparable, but overall, since there's a reason to go down either path, I'm fine with Pirate being better. UN is slightly less straightforward. Since the Shaman line is isolated, we can't assume they're balanced and must compare them to the Mage line. However, each option has a unique reason to be chosen, whether that's a high staff rank, a horse, a crit boost, or summoning. Thus, I think we can leave Mage and Shaman intact, and still have an interesting set of choices. And finally, back to the start of all things. With General now having value, it's a similar situation to Ross. That being, when becoming a Great Knight, is it worth passing up a horse for a few extra stats? Especially when it's not even all stats? Maybe. And if we take away a point of speed from Cav, maybe a bit more. It feels like I should do much more, since it was the intro bit. But as I said, since the tier 2s are better balanced, the lower tiers matter less. Screw it. Let's give Knight some actually good defense. If you sacrifice all the value of a second weapon type and a horse, the least you could get is armor that actually protects you from something. So that's it. The choices are balanced. Maybe. This is just from my limited amount of experience, insight, and testing. So it's more of a rough draft, which would appreciate other people's thoughts and suggestions. I just rather enjoy thinking about game design and balance, and want a version of the game where I feel I can justify going classes like Warrior, Druid, and Great Knight. Hack in the description if for some reason you wanted to play this. It'd be easy to make yourself with FE Builder anyways. Speaking of which, thanks to FE Builder for making this hack easy. Anyways, thank you and good night. Also, screw the super trainees, they're not real choices.